In this video, we're going to check out Michael Immig. Or is it Image?
Scifiwargamers.
Greetings hobby fans, my name's Marcel and it's my mission to help you explore the hobby. So today we are checking out a awesome member of the Oldhammer community, and his name is Michael Immig, although it could possibly be pronounced Image. It is a German name, I believe, so if there are any German viewers out there, please let me know the correct pronunciation, because we always like to pronounce things correctly in our niche, and if I catch any of you calling it a niche, then you will be removed immediately. I don't like that word niche. Anyway, Michael Immig. He was a German modeler who produced quite a few dioramas back in the late 80s. Something stuck to the side of my lip. I think it's a peanut M&M. Anyway, this gentleman created some marvellous dioramas, and we're going to have a little look at those. So without further ado, let's jump in and have a look. Fantastic imagery.
Like it.
Michael Immig began modelling some 15 years ago, in 1988, with airplanes and tanks, as conventional as a beginning as you might expect. He then discovered model soldiers in 1975, when he bought a Hysterix kit in London. At that time, Airfix produced their collector's range of model miniatures, and he quickly became involved in historical miniature modelling and conversion. He encountered Frank Frazetta's fantasy artwork a year or two later, and decided to build some of these fantasy creations in 3 dimensions, with Hysterix bits, Airfix parts, and a lot of green stuff, which is a milliput-like substance. In 1977, he purchased a copy of the first Dungeons & Dragons rulebook from a London shop, and started role-playing with some friends at a time when nobody else in Germany had even heard about role-playing games. When the first 25mm fantasy miniatures appeared on the market, he immediately began collecting and painting them. From that point, it didn't take Michael very long to realise their potential for diorama building, and with his experiences of 54mm figure modelling, the first of his dioramas appeared soon after. Since then, he's used all kinds of colours, including oils, building materials and tools. Even now, in 1988, he discovers something new every time he starts building a new diorama. Michael always attempts to create a realistic environment as possible, using natural materials wherever feasible to give the scene some kind of dramatic impact, or at least to tell a small story. As he became more and more involved in the hobby, he branched out into the other areas of the fantasy games field. Apart from reviewing miniatures for German RPG magazines from time to time, Michael wrote a bi-monthly column called Painting Workshop for Germany's leading RPG magazine at the time, Zauberzeit. For the German role-playing system, Das Scifiwargamers, he's also authored 2 scenarios published in 1986 and 1987 by Schmidt Spieler. In Michael's solo quest for domination of the German games field, he's managed to learn something about model photography skills as well. This has led to sales of his diorama photos to German magazines as covers. Finally, he's sculpted 12 25mm fantasy miniatures for a German manufacturer. In all modesty, I think I may say that today I'm Germany's most popular miniature painter and diorama builder in the fantasy field, doing a lot of exhibitions and competitions and some very popular workshops during such events, Michael said. When John Blanche travelled to Hamburg in 1987 as a guest of honour at a convention organised by Games Workshop, he met Michael and saw his work. In autumn of that year, Michael was invited over to England, and he brought some of his astounding collection with him to be photographed by Games Workshop's own lanky lensman, Phil Lewis. Michael's endearing character, finely honed skills, and sophisticated talent earned the respect of everybody at the studio, and there's nobody better qualified to talk about these photos than Michael himself. We now see a selection of showpieces from the collection of one of the world's leading fantasy modelers. The photographs are taken by Phil Lewis. Diorama 1. The Fighting Dinosaur. Being satisfied with a smaller saurian diorama built some 8 years ago, I decided to build an even larger one. But it wasn't finished until 2 years ago, as I'm always working on 5 to 10 projects at a time. When I get bored with one, I turn over to another, and vice versa. The basic model is an Airfix Brontosaurus kit. The head was reworked, adding some teeth, ears, and the horn. The neck and the tail received full plate armour using embossed plastic sheet, and the rest of the massive body got some chainmail. This was modelled using tissue covered with liquid plastic and, after rehardening, making a lot of tiny holes in it with a pointed soldering iron. The howdah was constructed in a similar fashion to the techniques we just described, using stripwood, chestnut and acorn shells, fir cones, seashells and even mouse and small chicken bones. The animals were not killed for the dioramas. Cocktail sticks, matches, cardboard and 2 small buttons for the gong. Miniatures were then added to the model. The dinosaur was painted in oils, the miniatures and construction with acrylics and inks. If you look closer, you will discover the ship-like concept I intended to realise. The captain in the crow's nest shouts his commands down to the steersman in the front gondola before roaring orders to the rest of the crew, who in turn operate a capstan. The captain pulls the chains which are connected to the neck of the saurian, and that's the process of navigating the monster. You can imagine the turning circle of that beastie, but can you imagine trying to stop it? Diorama 2. The Ogre riding the saurian beast. A dinosaur-based model from another plastic kit. This time it was a lifelike Corythosaurus with the head of the spined dragon instead of the original one. All the plastic claws were replaced with new ones sculpted from milliput, and to get a pockmarked surface, the completed model was covered for some seconds in a corrosive fluid, then immediately washed up under flowing water. The saddle and bags are made from milliput. The skulls are taken from the Citadel plastic skeletons. The backrest consists of mammal spinal bones. The Ogre itself is a well-known Citadel miniature, with the legs bent a little to fit into the milliput saddle. The creature was airbrushed in yellow ochre base colour and then painted entirely with inks and then dry brushed with acrylics. Diorama number 3, the Spaceship Amy Lou. This diorama depicts a group of space explorers just after landing on an unexplored planet and is called OK Anybody There. Captain Skua September and his benign crew await the arrival of the planet's inhabitants. The spaceship was completely scratch-built from old tank parts, 2 robot kits and a lot of plastic sheeting and smaller parts from my scrap box. Although it looks airbrushed, it was entirely brush painted with enamels, acrylics and pastels. Miniatures included the limited edition Space Santa and early Space Marines from Citadel. The groundwork was built up over some cardboard tube rings glued on a wooden board and covered with crumpled aluminium foil for the crater effect. Diorama number 4, Luftkamp, the air battle, Nazgul being attacked by eagles. My inspiration for this came when I saw the new Citadel Eagles for the first time. Complex construction drawings had to be made before I was able to start the actual building process. Then all diorama components were built and converted, put together to try out the right balance, painted separately, put together again, and then fixed with PVA and a lot of superglue. It's quite a heavy piece, and although it looks very fragile, it has survived a lot of exhibitions and travelling, thanks to the forethought given to the construction. I think I've achieved the right amount of dramatic impact in this scene. Diorama number 5. The Spined Dragon. The well-known Spined Dragon was sold in Germany as a hill dragon, so all it needed was a small hill. This was constructed with plaster impregnated bandage over a complicated wooden frame, and then covered with my own personal groundwork mixture. The dragon had to be fixed onto the hill prior to painting for reasons of strength, which didn't make the paint job any easier. The wings consist of plastic covered tissue, and the completed dragon was painted with oils using the sponge method, which is basically adding the colours in with small pieces of sponge or foam rubber for subtle blending effects. Diorama number 6. Skull Hill. Over the years, I've acquired a huge collection of natural history items, including a smaller collection of mammal skulls. When I was confronted with the art of H.R. Giger, the designer of Alien, and his biomechanoid structures, I was deeply impressed. I made some drawings and worked on the Skull Hill diorama using a deer skull. The structure beneath was built up with expanded polystyrene, tree branches, cork, and 2 citadel doors. The skull was glued on top with PVA. When the substructure was finished, the sculpting process started with layers of DAS modelling clay. All the natural parts, the skull and the branches, twigs, and different sorts of dried plant fruits had to be blended together with the DAS and the sculpted structures. The completed Skull Hill got a matte black overspray and was airbrushed afterwards with different shades of grey and white. All the miniatures, mainly Citadel goblins from the earlier ranges, had their metal bases removed and metal pins inserted in their feet before being painted with acrylics. They were then glued into pre-drilled holes with PVA glue. So, Michael Immig's dioramas. What did you think of those? Which one was your favourite? Do you like the idea of changing the head of a dinosaur to create something entirely new? What about the way you put your model, your plastic model, inside some sort of acid to make it soft? I really would not recommend trying this at home unless you're a crazy person. I think I might try that later then. My favourite one, I'd have to say, is probably the Nazgul being attacked by the eagles in the Lord of the Rings diorama. I think that was fantastic, and half of that is because the Nazgul miniature looks so damn weird. It had sort of a vulture look to it, and they did not look like that in the movies. So, let us know which was your favourite and why. Get out of the way, gene stealers. I told you. If you'd like to see some more Oldhammer content, and I know you do, then check out the playlist up here somewhere, or here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. That means you, Josh. If you enjoy the content on this channel, then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below. And if you do, I will love you forever. As always, thank you very much for watching, and always remember to drill your barrels.